Text reads, a virtual tour of Grant-related historic sites around the United States. Image of bearded man wearing a U.S. Army uniform.
Ulysses S. Grant is one of the most important figures in 19th century United States history. As a Civil War general, Grant fought to keep the country together, end slavery, and create a more perfect union. As a two-term president, Grant worked to promote peace, prosperity, and national unity after the war. He was also a devoted husband to his wife, Julia Dent Grant, and a loving father to 4 children. Many historic sites around the United States have a connection to Ulysses S. Grant. In this video, you'll learn about 11 historic sites from Washington State to New York that educate the public about Grant's remarkable life story. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this virtual journey.
Text reads, U.S. Grant, Birthplace, Point Pleasant, Ohio. Image of man and woman sitting next to a table.
Ulysses S. Grant was born on April 27, 1822, to Hannah and Jesse Root Grant in Point Pleasant, Ohio.
One-story frame house.
Located along the Ohio River and roughly a 30-minute drive from downtown Cincinnati, this one-story timber frame house was rented out by Grant's parents for $2 a month. This house symbolized the Grant family's rise to the middle class as Jesse Grant established himself as a tanner, working to cure animal hides for use as leather goods. Ulysses was less than 1 year old when the family relocated 23 miles east to Georgetown, but Grant's birthplace remains standing today and is managed by historic New Richmond Incorporated. Operating hours vary by season, but visitors can tour the home, walk the grounds, and learn about Grant's early life in Southwest Ohio.
Text reads, U.S. Grant, Boyhood home and schoolhouse, Georgetown, Ohio. Man standing in front of a brick building.
The U.S. Grant Homestead Association welcomes you to the Grant Boyhood Home. The home was built by Jesse Grant, Ulysses' father, in 1823, with additions in 1825 and 1828. The home has been renovated to its form in the late 1830s by the Ohio History Connection. Ulysses lived here from 1823 until he left for West Point in 1839. He lived here longer than anywhere else in his life, 16 years. Here you can find the childhood experiences that made Ulysses the man who would later save the Union. And here, an animatronic 12-year-old Ulysses tell you some of those stories. Other Grant sites in Georgetown include the Grant Tannery, Schoolhouse, murals, and 2 statues. We hope you will visit us in Georgetown, Ohio, or at our webpage at usgrantboyhoodhome.org. Thank you.
Text reads, United States Military Academy at West Point, New York. Man standing in lieutenant's uniform.
17-year-old Ulysses S. Grant's main passions in life were riding horses and doing farm work. He had no aspirations for a military career, but his father Jesse had other ideas. Anxious to have his son receive an elite college education free of cost, Jesse announced that Ulysses had received an appointment to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. Despite his own reluctance, Grant passed his entrance examination and entered the academy in the fall of 1839. He was self-deprecating about his time at West Point, later remarking that, quote, I did not take hold of my studies with avidity. In fact, I rarely ever read over a lesson the second time during my entire cadetship. Grant nevertheless excelled in horsemanship and mathematics at West Point, graduating 21st out of 39 cadets in the class of 1843.
Large marble statue.
West Point has commemorated Grant's legacy in several ways. A statue of Grant on the Plain, a prominent parade field on campus, was sculpted by Paula Slater and dedicated on April 25, 2021. A building, Grant Hall, is also located on campus and houses a number of dining options for current West Point cadets today. Public tours of West Point are available for booking and can be made at westpointtours.com.
Text reads, Jefferson Barracks, St. Louis, Missouri. Landscape painting of military fort.
After graduating from West Point, Ulysses S. Grant was assigned to join the 4th U.S. Infantry at Jefferson Barracks in St. Louis, Missouri. in September 1843. Located along the banks of the Mississippi River, the post was the largest in the United States at the time. For Grant, St. Louis was an unknown city and his first trip west of the Mississippi River. By pure coincidence, two of Grant's closest friends at West Point had connections to Jefferson Barracks. Although stationed elsewhere, Grant's roommate, Frederick T. Dent, grew up at Whitehaven, a plantation home 5 miles north of Jefferson Barracks. He invited Grant to visit the home and introduce himself to the rest of the Dent family.
Man in Confederate military uniform.
Another close connection was James Longstreet, the future Confederate general. Longstreet was a cousin of the Dent family who was also stationed at Jefferson Barracks at the time and frequently visited Whitehaven. These connections allowed Grant to quickly integrate himself into St. Louis society.
Surrounded by park grounds.
Today, Jefferson Barracks is jointly managed by St. Louis County Parks and the Department of Veteran Affairs. The site includes park grounds for recreation, a large national cemetery, and the Missouri Civil War Museum, which is housed at a 2-story brick building that originally functioned as a post exchange and gymnasium when it was built in 1905.
Text reads, Sackets Harbor Battlefield State Historic Site, Sackets Harbor, New York. Stone building in front of tree.
During the War of 1812, on the eastern end of Lake Ontario, Sackets Harbor's strategic location in Haudenosaunee Territory became the American Military Command Center. After the war, Navy Point remained the Navy's home, while the Army began building Madison Barracks just across the harbor. In autumn 1848, Julia reflected, "We had a long, fatiguing, and expensive trip to reach this far-off and out-of-the-way place." The Grants likely watched completion of the Navy Yard houses. Julia said, "We had a lovely winter, made many friends, and when we left for Detroit by the first boat in the spring, I really shed tears at parting." Returning in 1851 with her son Fred, Julia noted, "Sackets Harbor is a dull little hole as you ever saw, but the people are very clever. We could not have a more pleasant station." We were very happy at Madison Barracks. The officers all seemed to think a great deal of Captain Grant. Today, visitors to Sackets Harbor experience a community steeped in historic authenticity, a place to discover and reflect on the history that happened here.
Text reads, Fort Vancouver National Historic Site, Vancouver, Washington. Man wearing lieutenant's
From 1843 to 1854, Ulysses S. Grant was stationed at many posts around the country and also served in the Mexican-American War with the 4th U.S. Infantry. One of these posts that continues to exist today is Fort Vancouver in Vancouver, Washington. Originally called Columbia Barracks, this fort served as a major trading post for the Hudson's Bay Company and a place of frequent interaction between white settlers and indigenous people in the Oregon Territory.
Drawing a military fort.
Grant was stationed at Fort Vancouver from September 1852 to January 1854. He remarked that he was, quote, very much pleased with this country, end quote, but greatly missed his family, who remained in St. Louis during this time.
Welcome sign.
Today, Fort Vancouver National Historic Site is managed by the National Park Service. Visitors can tour the grounds, visit the Pearson Air Museum, and watch living history demonstrations throughout the year.
Text reads, Whitehaven, Ulysses S. Grant National Historic Site, St. Louis, Missouri.
While stationed at Jefferson Barracks in St. Louis, Ulysses S. Grant was a regular visitor to Whitehaven, a 2-story frame house on a sprawling 850-acre property 5 miles from the barracks. Here at Whitehaven, Ulysses met his future wife, Julia Dent Grant, and even proposed to her on the front porch of the house. After an additional 10 years of military service, Grant returned to Whitehaven and lived at this home for 5 years from 1854 to 1859 with his family and Julia's parents. Grant grew fruit and vegetable crops, sold firewood, and did his best to make ends meet for his wife and 4 children. This property was also a place of enslavement. The Dent family enslaved upwards of 30 African Americans in the 1850s, and Grant enslaved a man named William Jones for a period of time before freeing him in 1859. Today, this site is managed by the National Park Service, which strives to interpret the lives of the Grants, Dents, and enslaved people who lived on the Whitehaven property in the 19th century. Visitors can watch an orientation film, tour the Whitehaven estate, and visit the park's museum. The site is open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day except Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Day.
Text reads Ulysses S. Grant Home, Galena, Illinois. Woman standing in front of two-story brick building.
This is the U.S. Grant Home State Historic Site in Galena, Illinois, operated by the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. Ulysses Grant moved his family to Galena in the spring of 1860 to work in his father's leather goods store. It was from Galena that Ulysses Grant left for the Civil War. 4 years later, he returned a hero. Upon the family's return, 13 men from Galena brought them to this house and presented it to them as an appreciation gift for the general's service to his country. For the next 15 years, the Grants used this home as a vacation home, and although they left for the last time in 1880, they remained the owners until 1904. That's when the 4 Grant children deeded the home over with the understanding that it always be kept open as a public memorial for their father. Much of the original furnishings are still displayed in the home, and it's open for public tours Wednesday through Sunday.
Text reads Ulysses S. Grant Cottage, National Historic Landmark, Wilton, New York. Man standing in front of a two-story house.
Hello, my name is Ben Kemp. I'm the operations manager at Grant Cottage Historic Site here on Mount McGregor in upstate New York. The cottage was provided by a friend of the family, Mr. Joseph Drexel, and the family stayed here for about 6 weeks while Grant pushed through the pain of his throat cancer to finish his book. Just a few days before he died, here in this cottage on July 23, 1885. It is now a National Historic Landmark and a literary landmark. But the significance isn't just that Grant completed his memoirs here, but it is also the story of a family and a man that once again triumphed over adversity in his life. Many of the other Grant sites throughout the United States tell a similar story. A man that was willing to persevere, that always put duty first, whether it was to his family or to his nation. Shortly after Grant's death, the owner, Mr. Drexel, left the entire cottage as a memorial to Grant, essentially leaving a time capsule of history for the next 136 years, and people can still come here between May and October and get a guided tour through an amazing time capsule of history. For more information on what we offer here at the historic site, what experiences you can have, and for our programming, visit grantcottage.org.
Text reads General Grant National Memorial, New York, New York. Park ranger standing in front of mausoleum.
Here at General Grant National Memorial, we preserve the last resting place of Ulysses S. Grant and his wife, Julia. This towering piece of architecture is a testament to how beloved Grant was at the time of his death and is the largest mausoleum in North America. At its dedication in 1897, over 1 million people arrived to take part in a ceremony to honor both the general that saved the Union, but also a president who tried to heal his nation. Since then, millions of people have visited the tomb and have continued to learn about and celebrate Grant's memory. If you find yourself in Manhattan, you could be next, so feel free to stop on by.
Text reads Ulysses S. Grant Presidential Library, Starkville, Mississippi. Man standing in front of U.S. map.
In case you are wondering why my museum is in Mississippi, I should like to tell you that my greatest victory was Vicksburg, Mississippi, here during the Civil War. Moreover, all of my papers have been transferred here to Mississippi State University to form the nucleus of the Ulysses S. Grant Presidential Library. Please come and visit the Ulysses S. Grant Presidential Library in Starkville, Mississippi at Mississippi State University. Here at the Ulysses S. Grant presidential library at Mississippi State University. There are statuettes of me throughout my life. Here I am as a cadet when I first entered the United States Military Academy. I was 5 foot 1 inch and weighed 117 pounds. I've grown a bit since then. Please come and visit the Ulysses S. Grant Presidential Library at Mississippi State University, Starkville, Mississippi.
Man wearing black and white suit with bow tie.
Ulysses S. Grant's life and legacy can be seen at many historic sites around the country. The 11 historic sites you've seen in this video only touch the surface of places where you can learn about Grant's life and legacy. Be sure to visit the websites of each site to stay up to date on operating hours and program offerings. Thank you for watching this video.
Text reads Music, Happiness by Ben Sound, Still Picking by Kevin MacLeod, Outdoors in Summer by Shane Ivers. Special thanks Ned Lodwick, Constance Barone, Jamie Loso, Terry Miller, Ben Kemp, Andrew Astley, and Kurt Fields. National Park Service logo.